Just in case you were of the mind that Donald Trump might learn the error of his ways and finally offer some relief amid his unwinnable trade war with China, well, I've got bad news.
China says in order to have substantive negotiations, you have to bring down your 145% tariffs. Are you open to pulling back your tariffs in order to get China to the negotiating table?
No.
And there it is. The 145% tariff on China will stay in place, which means if you thought you'd be in for some relief from the rising prices, not going to be happening anytime soon. And look, I love my country and I've dedicated my life to fighting for my country, but I'm also a realist, and I recognize full well that in a face-off between China and the United States, we don't exactly have leverage for a few reasons. One, the whole world buys goods from China. Yes, we may be the biggest customers for China, but let's not pretend that everyone isn't buying goods from that country, and without us, they will still be fine. Second, how does Trump expect us to compete with China and keep goods inexpensive? What do you think the difference is in wages between the US and China? What do you think the difference is in labor laws between the US and China? And let's be clear, I'm not complaining. We should have livable wages and strong labor laws like we do in the United States, but with that comes the reality, inconvenient though it may be, that we cannot compete with an economy that was created to manufacture at the lowest rates in the world. And third, China's been around for 5,000 years. President Xi is president for life. Trust me, he's not sweating a standoff between China and the US when we've got midterms coming up in fewer than 18 months. I think in a contest between who will blink first, unless Trump is actually successful in installing himself as president for life, he's about to bear the full weight of political gravity in a country that doesn't exactly enjoy watching prices go up. But surely, Trump has a plan and at least understands basic economics, right?
What do you expect? What do you hope to come out of it?
We'll see. I mean, look, it's we were losing $1 trillion a year. Now we're not losing anything, That's the way I look at it. We were losing with China on trade $1 trillion a year. More, actually. 1.1. But let's say $1 trillion. You know what we're losing now? Nothing. That's not bad.
Are you China?
Oh, dear God. We're fucked. I'm sorry, but this dude has zero clue what he's talking about. He thinks a trade deficit means that we are, quote, losing money? No, my man, it means that we are buying what they're selling because they can sell it at an inexpensive rate. And remember, Trump knows that Americans want to pay low prices because he himself credited high prices with helping him win the last election.
I won on two things, the border, and more than immigration. They like to say immigration. I break it down more to the border, but I won on the border and I won on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
In other words, don't be fooled. He knew full well how potent the issue of high prices was when he exploited it for power. But now that he's already got power and doesn't need to pretend anymore, the mask comes fully off. This is Donald Trump all but admitting that he sold his supporters a bill of goods. So what happens next? The likely resolution here is that Trump caves, like we all know he's going to do, and will go back to pre-tariff rates. Only the rest of the world will be much less reliant on the US because they've now recognized that we are an unreliable trade partner. And so countries will import fewer goods from American farmers by going to places like Brazil for soybeans and Australia for beef, which is what they're doing right now. Why? Because their countries are not led by manic egomaniacs who turn the switch on and off on a daily basis. So even if the rates do go back to normal, our country is already going to be worse off. The damage is already done. And all the while, even as our economy continues to crater, what's Trump most concerned about? Well, that would be his ego.
We will, but we haven't made that decision yet.
China said the U.S. initiated the trade talks this weekend and that its position hasn't changed. Are you still confident you can reach a deal with China?
They said we initiated? Well, I think they ought to go back and study their files. Okay? I do think that.
Yeah. God forbid the United States doesn't seem strong. God forbid Trump admits that the US goes to the negotiating table first. God forbid we don't win every single pissing contest by this thin-skinned egomaniac. I'll tell you what, even if China is just needling Trump, even if they're just trolling him, it actually redounds to their benefit. Because the longer this economic calamity continues, the more it hurts the United States. And China knows that, which is probably why they have no desire to give Trump what he wants and come to the negotiating table. And again, They can withstand it. They don't have elections coming up. Again, she is president for life, and they know that we can't because we do have elections every 2 years. And if the most recent spate of special elections is any indication, they don't exactly bode well for the Republican Party. Again, China is well aware. In fact, the whole basis for this trade war is based on Donald Trump's fundamental misunderstanding of very basic economics. Here's economist Jeffrey Sachs explaining as much here.
If you take your credit card and you go shopping and you run up a large credit card debt, you're running a trade deficit with all those shops. Now, it would be pretty strange if you then blamed all the shop owners for having sold you all those things. You're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, I'm running a trade deficit. That is the level of understanding of the President of the United States. The trade deficit does not represent at all trade policies. It represents spending relative to production or earnings. We call that an identity. I teach it in the second day of my course in international monetary economics. Trump never made it to the second day. So he says, you're running a trade deficit. Look, they're all cheating me. But all that's happening is the United States is outspending its national income.
Either Donald Trump truly does not have the slightest clue what he's talking about, which is very possible, or he's got a more self-serving plan in mind. But I mean, come on, self-serving? Donald Trump? That couldn't possibly be the case.
Plenty of problems in the world. You know, when I left 4.5 years ago, I left, and I'll tell you what, we didn't have any of these problems. The good news is costs are way down, groceries are down, eggs are down, gasoline is way down. It's all coming down. It's all looking good. The tariffs are strong. We're taking in a lot of money from tariffs. We were losing a lot before I got here. We were losing billions of dollars a day, and now we're doing great, and we haven't even kicked in yet. And eventually we'll be reducing taxes very substantially for the people of our country because the money is so great coming in from tariffs that I'll be able to reduce taxes to a very large extent and maybe almost completely.
And there it is. He wants to eliminate personal income tax. These tariffs are his way of shifting the tax burden from people like him to the working class. Remember, the top 1% paid 42% of income taxes in 2020, while the bottom 50% paid just 2.3%. Why? Because the top 1% makes the majority of the money in this country. But Trump wants people like him to keep all of their money and rely on regular consumers to shoulder the tax burden in this country. If greed was a policy, this would be it. And clearly Trump knows that. He just does not care. He is perfectly content to throw the working class under the bus if he can create an economy that ultimately works better for him. All that pain that we have to suffer in the interim, the loss of retirement savings, the high prices, the decimation of our agriculture sector, the loss of trade partners, the surging cost of homes, the unaffordable food prices, that is all a price that Trump is willing to allow us to pay. After all, our suffering is but a mere inconvenience in Donald Trump's grand plan to enrich himself. He took power on the pretense that he was fighting for you, when in reality, it is abundantly clear that he's only fighting for himself. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.